It was February 3, 2024, a night like any other in Grabill, Indiana, until it wasn't. At about 8:30 p.m., a 911 call shattered the calm. What the operator heard was chilling. A man claiming his girlfriend had attacked him with a knife during an argument. Within minutes, police raced to a modest home to find something far more sinister. When they arrived at the residence, inside, they discovered Marcia Linsky, 64, a former magistrate and a respected defense attorney, lying on the kitchen floor, fatally stabbed. 2 knives rested neatly beside her, and blood smeared across the scene hinted at a desperate struggle. Her partner, Charles Michael Calvert, was standing outside with his hands up. He was also holding his phone. No one else was in their home the night Linsky died. This is the story of Marcia Linsky, and the shocking night her quiet life ended in violence. To understand the weight of what happened on February 3, 2024, we have to first understand who Marcia Linsky was. Not just as a name in a news report, but as a woman of thought, courage, and deep community root. Marcia Linsky was born on February 9, 1959, in Ohio, to Charles and Marjorie Gock. From a young age, she carried a quiet resolve, one that would eventually lead her into the world of law, where she could serve others and make a tangible difference. She went on to study at Indiana University, and in 1984, she graduated from the Indiana University Maurer School of Law with her law degree. That moment marked the beginning of a lifetime dedicated to justice, public service, and legal mentorship. Not long after finishing law school, Marcia moved into public service. In August 1999, she became a magistrate judge in Allen County, Indiana, handling misdemeanor and traffic cases, a role that placed her at the heart of her community's everyday legal need. Her reputation grew quickly. Colleagues and community members respected her for her fairness, her intelligence, and her willingness to mentor young attorneys. For over 20 years, she served as a pillar of legal stability and compassion in Fort Wayne. By 2013, she transitioned her career again, joining a private law office in Fort Wayne where she practiced in criminal defense and domestic relations. Her more than 3 decades in the legal field weren't just a job, they were a calling. Marcia wasn't just known for her legal smarts. She was widely described by friends and colleagues as generous with her knowledge. Over her 30-plus-year career, she mentored countless young lawyers, offering not only legal advice but also emotional support during difficult cases. She was deeply committed to her community, and her law practice in Fort Wayne reflected a person who cared deeply, not just for winning cases but for people. In her personal life, Marcia was loved by many. She is survived by a daughter, stepchildren, 5 grandchildren, and 2 beloved dogs. Her role as mom and grandmother was deeply important to her, not a side note, but a central part of her identity. For Marcia, justice wasn't just something she practiced in the courtroom, it was what she lived for in her relationships, too. While she followed a serious profession, Marcia balanced it with a thoughtful temperament. She believed in service, humility, and respect. Testimonies from colleagues suggest she approached life with a calm determination and a strong moral compass. Her dedication came not from ego, but from a genuine belief in fairness, that everyone deserved a voice, even those who struggled to have one. She was a mentor, a judge, an advocate, and for many, a quiet hero. For most of her life, Marcia Linsky moved through the world with quiet certainty. She was steady, measured, responsible, the sort of person who paid attention to details and trusted her instincts. But in the months leading to February 2024, there were small moments, nearly invisible on their own, that now seem impossible to ignore. Friends later recalled something subtle. Marcia had become more guarded. Not frightened, just unusually cautious. She double-checked doors more often. She kept her phone closer. She left work right on time. Little things. Things that didn't seem meaningful until they suddenly mattered. There were also days when she seemed distracted, lost in thought, as if carrying a weight she hadn't spoken about yet. Colleagues chalked it up to a demanding workload, a full practice, or the pressures of family life. But now, those moments feel like early tremors before a quake. In some conversations with her close friend, she hinted at feeling watched. Not in a dramatic way, but with the uneasy tone of someone who'd noticed the same unfamiliar car twice, or the same stranger's face in a place they shouldn't be. She brushed it off. She had lived a long, steady life without enemies. Or so she believed. In the last weeks of January, custody of the house's front doorbell camera footage would later reveal something chilling. A figure standing near her driveway late at night. Not approaching, not knocking, just standing. The image blurred by distance, identity masked by darkness. She never reported it. Maybe she didn't want to worry anyone. Maybe she convinced herself it was nothing. But someone had taken an interest in her. And it wasn't the last time. A life full of goodness. Shadowed by something else. Marcia's final days were filled with normalcy, lunch with family, calls with friends, preparing documents for clients. She moved through life as she always had, thoughtfully, with care. But behind the scenes, the wrong person was drawing closer. Someone who had been studying her, watching her patterns, tracing her step. Someone who knew when she would be home, and when she would be alone. Looking back now, the signs were there, tiny cracks in the surface of a life lived with purpose. No one could have predicted how quickly everything would shatter. The moment first responders arrived around 8:25 p.m. on February 3rd, deputies from the Allen County Sheriff's Department responded to a 911 call about a stabbing at a home on Lagoon Drive. When speaking to the dispatcher, Calvert said she came at him, and he responded inappropriately, "I'm going to spend the night in jail." Shortly after, Calvert's father called in to say his son called him, and said he had heard his girlfriend, and was going to call 911. When they entered, they discovered Marcia Linsky lying face down on the kitchen floor, motionless, clearly the victim of a violent attack. Her body wasn't tucked away or hidden, she was left out in plain view. The coroner would later confirm, her death was caused by multiple stab wounds. Police entered the home cautiously. They spotted 2 kitchen knives on the ground, but something was immediately off. These knives weren't carelessly dropped, they were positioned neatly, side by side, as if someone had placed them there with purpose. Investigators began combing through the crime scene. Among their findings was an onion peel in the trash can, but detectives noted no evidence of chopped onions. A spilled crockpot on the kitchen floor, a strange mess in the aftermath. Court documents say Calvert claimed Marcia shoved the slow cooker in their fight. Marcia's eyeglasses were on the counter, stained with blood, not tucked away, not broken, just left in her own workspace. Scuff marks on the floor, suggesting a physical struggle. Shoes dragged, resisting motion. There was blood in the shower, raising a chilling possibility. Someone had tried to clean up before calling for help. When the coroner's team examined Marcia's body, they documented severe and precise wounds. She had deep gashes on her neck and head, not superficial cuts, but ruthless, forceful wounds. Her right thumb was nearly severed, a detail investigators recorded as a possible defensive injury. These weren't accidental cuts. They spoke to desperation, defense, and a life in its final moments fighting back. Charles Michael Calvert, her boyfriend, was outside when deputies arrived. He had just called 911. On the line, he told the dispatcher, "Marcia came at me with a knife." But his voice during the call didn't match the fear one might expect. He seemed calm, almost rehearsed. But his story didn't quite match the evidence. He told officers she lunged at him. He said he only defended himself. He claimed it all started with a fight over how to cut onions. But the clues told a different story. The trash held onion peels, but no chopped onions. Blood was found in the shower, suggesting someone cleaned up. And the crime scene looked staged. In that moment, detectives realized, this wasn't just a tragic death. It was a carefully crafted lie. He had responded inappropriately, and said he was going to spend the night in jail. As reports came in, investigators began to believe the crime scene had been staged. Why? Because the layout didn't mirror a spontaneous attack. They knives placed neatly, not thrown. No chopped onions, but a peel in the trash. A clean shirt, a pair of pants with blood. A poem of struggle, scuff marks, signs of a fight, but only after something was deliberately disturbed. There was no sign Marcia had attacked randomly. Something was choreographed. Something was planned. In that kitchen, under the sterile lights and between the whispers of evidence, the truth wasn't just tragic. It was calculated. And as detectives documented every scuff, every peel, every knife, they realized one chilling thing. The story Calvert told wouldn't hold up under the weight of her final moments. Court documents also reveal something quite unexpected. Calvert reportedly told someone before the police arrived that his girlfriend had acted strangely, and mentioned she had bought bleach that same day, even though she never buys bleach. Why does that matter? Because bleach is a strong cleaning agent, the kind someone might use to remove blood or other evidence. Could this have been a hint that Calvert anticipated a need to clean something up? When all these lies, staging, and odd details merge, the onion story, the defensive stance, the cleanup, and the carefully placed knives, a different picture emerges. This may not have been a sudden act of fear. It could very well have been a calculated crime. Marcia's death wasn't just a tragic accident. Investigators now believe it was something far darker, and the man she trusted may have planned every chilling detail. This was more than a crime of passion. It was a crime of planning. 60-year-old Charles Michael Calvert was dating Marcia Linsky for about 1 year before her death. As detectives walked into that house the night Marcia Linsky died with a bad feeling in their stomachs, evidence started talking. That feeling grew into something undeniable. At first, Charles Michael Calvert's story sounded dramatic enough to be possible. A fight, 2 knives, both of them emotional, both of them scared, a tragic accident. You could almost believe him. But detectives have a rule. If the truth is real, it stays solid. If it's a lie, it cracks under pressure. And Calvert's story cracked fast. Calvert claimed Marcia charged at him with a knife. But the forensics team found something chilling. Marcia's wounds showed no hesitation marks. Multiple stab wounds, including fatal ones, all inflicted with force. A struggle that would have happened in a real knife fight? Not a single sign of it. The medical examiner told detectives in plain terms. This wasn't a two-sided altercation. This was an attack. And that was only the beginning. When crime scene techs scanned the house, they noticed something odd. Fresh blood in the shower. Water still slowly drying along the tub. Traces of diluted blood in the drain. Someone had tried to wash up. And Marcia had not made it to that shower. Which meant only one thing. The killer cleaned himself before calling 911. Calvert said he panicked, but investigators said he was buying time. Remember his dramatic claim? The argument erupted because he didn't chop onions correctly. But crime scene photos told a different story. An uncut onion in the trash. 0 chopped onions anywhere in the kitchen. No cutting board out. No knife with onion residue. Detectives stood there staring at that onion like it was a witness. Because it was. It proved the fight, the entire reason for the stabbing. Never happened the way he said it did. A staged crime scene is like a bad magic trick. You can see where the hands fumbled. Detectives noticed. The knives placed too neatly beside Marcia's body, more artificial display than chaos. A smear of blood wiped across the counter, as if someone tried to erase something quickly. A time gap between Marcia's estimated time of death and the 911 call. And then came the detail that truly cracked the case open. The medical examiner studied Marcia's hands. That's where victims scream silently. Marcia's hands had deep defensive wounds, multiple cuts from trying to block the blade, signs she fought with everything she had. This wasn't self-defense by Calvert, this wasn't equal combat, this wasn't an accident, this was rage, this was attack, this was intent. And detectives knew. They were looking at the truth. Marcia couldn't speak anymore. Investigators began by reconstructing the final 24 hours of Marcia's life. At first, Charles's version seemed ordinary. But detectives noticed something subtle. His timeline was too perfect, too clean, too rehearsed. When they compared security camera footage, phone pings, and card transactions, a gap appeared. A 47-minute window where Charles could not be accounted for. And that was the first thread. Charles had wiped his phone, or so he thought. But detectives seized Marcia's smartwatch, and that changed everything. The smartwatch had recorded her heart rate spike around the estimated time of death. A sudden drop, a struggle pattern that experts recognized immediately. Even more devastating, the watch had connected to the home Wi-Fi during the incident. And in that connection log was a second device using the network. Charles's tablet, active in the house. He had forgotten the tablet even existed. A neighbor initially gave a vague statement, nothing useful. But detectives went back, pressing gently, asking them to rethink the night. Slowly, the neighbor remembered the detail they had overlooked. A muffled thud. A woman's voice, strained, not normal. And then a man's voice, low, tense. That was enough to trigger a deeper interview. Within hours, detectives had a sworn statement suggesting a domestic argument. When investigators returned, they found a trash bag tucked behind the water heater, a shirt with faint blood transfer, a pair of gloves still damp inside. While Calvert didn't have a long public criminal record, detectives uncovered patterns from interviews, anger issues that escalated fast, controlling behavior, a history of aggressive outbursts, stories from past acquaintances that painted a darker picture than his harmless exterior. It all fit the emotional profile of someone who could snap, and someone who would lie boldly afterward. And then, everything clicked, all the inconsistencies, all the staging, all the forensic contradictions. Detectives realized they had enough to dismantle his story from top to bottom. Because the closer they looked, the more the truth pointed in one direction. Straight at him. When events that began in a quiet home in Grabill, Indiana, finally entered the courtroom, the story that had been hidden for days exploded into the open. The charges laid bare. On February 6, 2024, the Allen County Sheriff's Department confirmed that the death of Marcia Linsky, 64, found in her home on February 3, was officially ruled a homicide. Her boyfriend, Charles Michael Calvert, 60, was arrested and held without bond, charged with murder in connection with her fatal stabbing. Investigators cited wounds described as multiple incised wounds and a crime scene that had signs of staging and cleanup. As of March 2025, court records showed that the case was formally set for trial. Reports noted documents filed in Allen County Superior Court identifying Calvert as the defendant. As the legal wheels turned, motions were filed. Neighbors, colleagues, and professional peers of Marcia began to testify as witnesses in pre-trial hearings. The public and media focused on how a respected former magistrate had died and how an argument over something as mundane as onion chopping could be claimed as the trigger. The evidence presented a turning point in court filings and affidavits. Investigators disclosed key details of the scene. Knives placed neatly near the victim's body, inconsistent with spontaneous struggle. An onion peel in the trash, but no evidence of chopped onions in the kitchen, undermining Calvert's initial narrative. The victim's glasses on the countertop with blood, scuff marks near the dining area, and signs of cleanup in the bathroom. These elements allowed the prosecution to argue that what began as an argument ended as a planned and deliberate act of violence. Marcia Linsky served as a magistrate in Allen County from 1999 to 2013, then practiced as a public defender and private attorney. Colleagues described her as an inspiration and a pillar of fairness. Her family and professional network rallied, not with vengeance, but with a demand for truth and accountability. The community remembered her kindness, her mentorship, and the abruptness of her loss. As of the latest verified data, the trial was scheduled for April 21, 2025 in Allen County. The probable cause: if Calvert is convicted of the murder charge, he could face 10 to 30 years in prison for a voluntary manslaughter. The specific circumstances of the crime and the offender's criminal history can influence the exact sentence within these statutory guidelines. Under Indiana law. For Marcia's family, the arrest and forensic revelations felt like the first true step toward justice. It wasn't yet closure, but it was a significant shift from silence to accountability. This case illustrates multiple powerful truths. A quiet life of public service can be disrupted in an instant by hidden violence. Everyday objects, an onion peel, a pair of glasses, a misplaced knife, can become pivotal evidence. The legal system demands more than motives. It demands proof, timing, and forensic. Community trust, professional reputation, and human dignity all hang in the balance when justice is delayed or denied. Linsky served as a board member for a nonprofit, Blue Jacket. After her death, the Allen County Prosecutor's Office created the Marcia Linsky Advocacy Award to honor work in domestic violence advocacy. She handled hundreds of cases. At her death, her office said she had 106 open cases, including serious criminal cases.